What's going on, everybody? Brandon Rust here, Pokashi Earthworks. Welcome to another Q&A live stream. Oh, what's up, everybody? Happy 4th of July. It is actually storming out here in Oklahoma. I don't think there's going to be many outdoor activities to be had today. Morning, Plant Guardian. We're just getting started. I came in actually, even though it's a holiday, because I was behind on packages. So we've had a lot of orders come in for the 4th of July sale. So that is going on until the 8th. You can get 20% off on microbes, amendments, and humates. Cheers, everybody. Excuse me. I'm just chilling, taking it easy today. I got here a little earlier and, filled packages. I need to clean the bong water. I think I wanted to talk a little bit about just pro tips today. Well, small things that you can do that make a huge difference in the garden. Oftentimes, attention to detail is where you get that, your quality. So a couple of things. I mentioned this the other day on my Instagram, is if you're running LED lighting, and I get this question a lot in my DMs. I'll have people send me pictures and they'll say, hey man, can you tell me what deficiency this looks like? And they'll show me a plant that is basically showing, heavy yellowing or discolorization on the plant at the canopy. And usually the solution is not nutrients. It is usually just to dial back that LED light. A good example is I'm running a 640 watt light over my 3x3 beds. And currently I'm in, I think, week 3.5 or maybe getting close to week 4 of flower. And my lights are at 55%. So you don't need a ton of light. The LEDs are very efficient. However, another pro tip when it comes to LED lighting is you want to keep your environment warmer than you typically would. And the reason is LED lights, they have less infrared. Infrared is expressed as heat. So it heats up the canopy. And what happens, like HPS light, right, has more infrared. So it'll heat up the canopy and that'll increase the transpiration rate and the rate that water moves through the plant. So the plant can essentially move water more efficiently because it's warmer. However, with LED, you don't have a lot of that infrared expressed as heat. And so to make up for that, what you want to do is increase the temperature of the room, usually up to between 78 and 84 degrees at the canopy. So if you take a laser thermometer and you're gauging the canopy temperature, you should base your VPD off that. Typically, when you're running a higher canopy temperature with LED, when you're, increasing your environmental temperature to create more warmth in the room, that'll increase the transpiration rate And so that's, I think, one of the biggest difficulties people see when they transition from high intensity discharge lights, HID lighting, to LED, is the lack of heat, which causes a decrease in transpiration rate, which expresses as not as good or healthy growth. And then oftentimes the light is up too much. So those are 2 pro tips, a little bit about LED lights, a little explanation on what's happening. Another pro tip, and these are going to be some for nutrients. So it doesn't matter what type of system you run. It doesn't matter if you're in DWC, if you're in, cocoa, hydro, potting soil, organic soil, if you're in native soil. It doesn't matter how you cultivate. But if you spray your plants down 2 times a week with Epsom salt at a rate of 1 tablespoon per gallon of water. Epsom salt is magnesium sulfate. So it's a naturally occurring mineral that is mined, and it is extremely water soluble, and it delivers magnesium directly to the plant. And the benefit of that is because that magnesium is very soluble. And if you look across the board at any type of, nutrient brand, whether it's Athena or Drip or Front Row, or if it's an organic amendment, like what's the one, Dr. Green's, or Lion's Pride, or whatever. If you look at the magnesium source, they're always, or most of the time, using Epsom salt, magnesium sulfate, as the ingredient for magnesium, whether it's in hydroponics or whether it's in organics. And the reason why is because it has a very, very high solubility. So you can put it into solution and it'll liberate all those nutrient ions into available form. But they are reactive. Some of those can tie other things up. And so when you put them into your media, they can antagonize things like potassium and calcium. But when you deliver them through a foliar application, the plant can uptake those through the stomata. And the benefit of that is, especially if you have a little too much nitrogen, if you've overfed nitrogen, oftentimes you'll see the plant trying to produce chlorophyll, but it doesn't have enough magnesium. It can't produce chlorophyll to increase the photosynthetic, capacity of the plant, because at the center of the chlorophyll molecule is magnesium. It's magnesium followed by 4 nitrogen molecules. So spraying Epsom salt 2 times a week, 1 tablespoon per gallon, until the 2nd week of flower, regardless of what system you're in, can drastically improve plant vitality, plant health, unless you have magnesium toxicity. Otherwise, it's a great way to get magnesium to the plant. Another little pro tip is going to be about iron. So iron oxidizes in the soil medias. In hydroponic nutrients, they use, it doesn't do this because it is chelated with EDTA. So across the board, if you look at hydro nutrients, it's usually EDTA iron chelate that they're using in their blends. However, in organics, that is not the case. Typically iron sulfate, or they're getting iron from blood meal. But regardless of how that iron is derived from in a natural organic setting, that iron, because it's not chelated, it will oxidize into oxidized iron oxide, rust. And that's not plant available. It needs to be in its ferric form, but it oxidizes really easily, and it does it really quick in the presence of oxygen, and then also above a pH range of about 5.5. So it has better solubility at a low pH range. But the trick is with the trichine bacillus. So that those microorganisms produce the largest quantity of siderophores, which actually chelate iron and keep it from oxidizing naturally. Another thing that you can also do is you can take iron sulfate and you can spoon feed throughout your veg, but also things like using the microbe plus, which has lower pH, which will lower the pH of your solution temporarily because your media is buffered. The nutrient ions that are less available at higher pH ranges, like iron and manganese, those will have better availability temporarily because you're dropping the soil solution temporarily, the pH of the soil solution, in making conditions that are more conducive to keep those nutrients from oxidizing and keeping them available in solution. Another pro tip is going to be about manganese. So just like iron, manganese also oxidizes, and it's used in its divalent form, if my memory serves me correctly. They also compete for the same space on soil colloids and for the same space in water, in the solution. And so they face this kind of the same different challenges, and they can be antagonistic. You know, too much iron can block out manganese, too much manganese can block out iron. So you have to be diligent about maintaining balance between those two nutrients. But the pro tip is this: if you increase your manganese levels, you know, right to, because usually iron is usually always higher than manganese, but if you bump up those levels about even with iron or just slightly over iron during your transition phase, I have seen, and this is just anecdotal, and eventually hope, you know, we'll be able to do some testing on this, genetic testing, to see what type of genes may be triggered, but I've seen earlier onset of flowering. And I believe it has something to do that with the fact that iron is more of a photosynthetic and vegetative type of nutrient. It has more metabolic processes that function on that side of things, while manganese has a lot more, is responsible for a lot more metabolic processes that are related with plant maturity and you know, flowering and hormones and all that other type of stuff. So just one of the things that I've seen anecdotally, and so it's something that I implement into my cultivation practice. When I flip, I always add a little bit of manganese. All right, let's see. I think I saw a question in here. How would you like to be the first guest on my Breeder Terps Show podcast? Sure, I wouldn't mind. You just got to DM me on IG and set up a good time. Using your microbes, complex humates, calcium, outdoor plants are happy and growing fast. Yeah, man. I just shared a story of my backyard plants in my IG today, and they are absolutely booming. I've got my plants in native soil, and they look like they're in an organic soil mix, you know, a living soil mix. Yeah. IG and Meta, they do that. Absolutely. This is actually a really good question. So the question is, this is from Sir Hunt-A-Lot. And again, if you guys have any questions, then leave them in the comments. Okay, so the question is, can you explain how microbes in a powder form or liquid form stay alive and activated? So most of these microorganisms, they will produce endospores, like a lot of the bacillus, lactic acid producing bacteria. They will create what are called endospores. And so in the event that they do not have access to adequate resources, water, carbon, and nutrients, oxygen in some cases, depending on if they're anaerobic, facultative, or aerobic microorganisms. When they do not have adequate resources, what they do is they create endospores. And what they do is they basically encapsulate their DNA in this lipid fat cellular membrane. And what happens is they're able to preserve themselves. And they've shown that some of these endospores, they found endospores from some bacillus species that were over 35 million years old and were still viable. So some of these things can withstand really extreme environmental conditions, high heat, high and low, cold temperatures, all different types of different parameters that they can, dry, frozen. And so that what they do is they sporulate. And the same thing with a lot of the fungal body, fungal mycelium based microorganisms, trichoderma, arbuscular mycorrhizal fungus. So all of those things, they sporulate. And so they have their fruiting bodies are basically living spores. And those living spores are essentially like a seed. You can think of it just like a seed. So when you look at a seed, let me see if I have a seed. Here we go. So when you think about a seed, you may not necessarily think of it as alive, but it is alive. It's just inactive. And so what they do is they create these, they encapsulate themselves and they create these basically spores that act as seeds. And when those spores come in contact with, an area or they go into an environment that is conducive, has the right temperatures, access to water, carbon, they start to they sporulate and they grow and they start to proliferate. And so they can sporulate in liquid solutions, and they can also they can just be like the pure spores like that I have. And we're actually going to be selling arbuscular mycorrhizal fungus as well. Oh, I see your comment. All right, what are y'all smoking on today? 4th of July. It's storming and raining, and I'm sure we'll have a thunderstorm because that's Oklahoma for you, where we're at. So I don't think there's going to be any outdoor activities. Today, but Mark smoking on some SFV classic. SFV. It's been a couple of years since I've smoked any SFV. The last time I smoked it is when I was growing it out in the mixed light greenhouses. Some purple pie, Sir Hunt-A-Lot. I'm not sure what the genetics on that is, but sounds like a modern cross. What's going on? Everybody's just chilling, relaxing on this holiday. I'm down here at the office. I was filling orders, but I'm actually going to go do some work at the grow and dispensary. Get the DU hung in the last room. Finish a little drywall stuff. Homegrown Snowman. Never heard of that one either. Cheers if you guys are just joining. You're smoking on Deadhead Dread is smoking on some Bubba Fett. Sounds like a Bubba Kush cross. Yeah, 3-day weekend for most people. Me, however, I'll be working. I got to do some stuff today. Not a ton of stuff. I just got to get this DU hung. All the new lights are all hung except for one. We actually have all the things like ready to go, but I ran out of ratchet straps. And then I hooked up the I have an RO, but I'm only using the reverse osmosis machine. It's strictly for my humidifiers. I tested the water, the city water where I'm at, and the city water is actually really clean, and it's perfectly fine to use that unfiltered for my soil beds. My IG is here. I'll put it in the chat. It's Russ.Brandon. I just planted, it's a little bit late, but I just planted some cucumbers. I'll probably plant some beets. I just cleared out all of the potatoes out of my bed. I got, I don't know, probably about 70 pounds of potatoes. Pulled a bunch of onions, and then I just planted some peppers. And I'm going to plant some cucumbers. I'll probably, I planted some more potatoes too. I was like, fuck it, let's see if I can get a second round out of the season. So we'll see what happens with all of that. What am I smoking today? I'm smoking on the same thing I've been smoking on. I really like this one. I'll probably, I almost have just been smoking this exclusively. I have some other stuff. I've got some Limarilla, which is almost gone too, so I've slowed down on that. I have some Rainbow Twists and some Chemdog, which is almost gone too. But I'm smoking on the Permanent Marker Black Lime Reserve. It's a cross that I made. I didn't release it. I was like, I don't have room for this. It was just something that I was fucking around with. Wanted to get a permanent marker in there because that's like kind of like one of my favorite modern day cultivars. And I sent a pack to the homie J-Pot. He popped some. He hunted some out, dude, and it's excellent. He found a really nice cut. Here's my IG right here. It's at Russ.Brandon. BLR number 5. Is that what you're smoking on? That sounds good. Rust-Oleum. It's got a really, I couldn't, I've got a really good nose, but I just couldn't put a note to it. Like I can't say, oh, this smells like something else. It doesn't smell like anything else, and that's what I like about it. But it's got a sweetness, but it's also got this it's got that permanent marker on it for sure. But it also has this like sweet pickle salt and lime. Yeah, what's up with the Battle of the Breeders? I said this on my other live. So we're still waiting on inspections. They made us resubmit all of our plumbing designs and building designs. And then they told us that we needed to swing our doors in a different direction, which is super fucking stupid. But so we're just making some modifications, which is kind of typical for, a legal cannabis business, is having to deal with all of the all of the inspections and, got to check this, make this, and, things that we didn't even expect, like having to swing our doors a different way. So put it on pause as soon as we're done with these inspections. This facility is pretty much done. I'm going over to there to hang the last dehu um, in the last flowering room, do some drywall patchwork, and I mean it's done, dude. We're just waiting for the A-OK to start everything up. So you know how it is in the legal space. But it's not a huge deal that we're not up and running yet. We're being patient. We don't have like a really a huge overhead or anything like that. So we're all right now. Oh man. It's just what you get with the fucking, because it's not just like you have to get a building inspection, and then they're like, okay, we want to make sure everything's up to code. We have the design plans, plumbing, you have to do water inspection, electric inspection, fire inspection, and then final inspection. So it's like, we because we updated the plumbing, we had to resubmit a fucking plumbing design. But it'll be rad, dude. And here's the thing: if this new state question gets passed and they write uh, a new bill into the state's constitution that allows for adult use and separates medical from adult use, anybody will be able to come into the store. Ooh, yeah! Happy 4th, everybody! Happy Freedom Day. It doesn't look like I'm gonna be doing shit. It's fucking storming right now, so. Let's see. Mark Nelson's asked, will that mini microbe lift BCM have any benefits in the outdoor? Does that kind of self-regulate itself? So if you were having fungus gnats or if you were having mosquito issues, definitely you can put it into standing bodies of water and it will kill off mosquito larvae. It also kills off fungus gnat larvae as well. So I posted that on the IG today, the microbe lift pro tip. That's for fungus gnats. Speaking of pro tips, I guess we could get a little bit into IPM. First pro tip would be always think in terms of IPM as canopy management and media management, as well as biosecurity. Another pro tip is that microbe lift BCM. It is biological mosquito control. It is Bacillus thuringiensis israeliensis toxin. It's basically a secondary metabolite that is produced by bacteria, and they've just concentrated it. And you can water that into your media. It will. I've heard people tell me that they tried it and it didn't work. But if they tried it and it didn't work, it's because they didn't do it properly. If you're having high insect pressure, I recommend using like 10 milliliters per gallon. And if you need to, hit them once a week for like a couple of weeks. But I do about 2 milliliters per gallon, and I do it about once a month. And I never fucking see fungus gnats on my indoor. Never, ever, ever. It is the most efficient and the most cost effective treatment for fungus gnats. Now, it doesn't, as far as I know, it really doesn't have any effect on anything else. It may have some slight effect on root aphids, but I'm not 100% sure. It's just some anecdotal stuff that I've seen personally with my own grow, but other people haven't seen that. But it's really just for fungus gnats. So it's really helpful, especially in an organic situation, because so many people that grow in organics run into that problem, especially if they overwater a little bit or if they put in too much compost or too much organic matter on the surface. and you can find it on Amazon. So it's really easy to get a hold of too. Cost efficient. You don't need to use a lot. You can have it right there. Another pro tip is, you know, it depends on if you like to spray or not. Some people don't like to use any of those types of products, which I understand. Me personally, it's really efficient and really cost effective. I don't have to make my own stuff, like some people like to. I'm just, it's like to have things ready to use whenever I need it. But Monterey Horticulture Oil or Suff Oil X, they're basically the exact same thing. Monterey Horticulture Oil, you can find that on Amazon, so it's really easy to get a hold of. I think you can find Suff Oil X on Amazon as well. 30 milliliters per gallon, spray a couple times a week, or if you have real low pressure, maybe once a week. You'll never have issues in your canopy. Or if you're having an issue in your canopy and you just follow that protocol, maybe 3 times a week if you have higher pressure, once every other day or something like that, it'll get rid of most things as long as you keep up that maintenance protocol. Like if you get spider mites or russet or thrips or anything like that, that Suff Oil X, or even things like powdery mildew, right? Because it is effective against a broad spectrum of both insects and pathogens. And so if you have an issue and you just keep doing that maintenance, that'll work for canopy maintenance. Now, you can't use that in your media. So at the same time, you're doing that because you could have spores that are in your media that are, when you're watering or something, they're splashing up on the bottom leaves and then it's spreading, or, there could be a number of different situations where it could be spreading through the fans blowing around. So you need to be treating your media as well if you have an issue, And what I found is the most efficient products for canopy maintenance, don't always work for, media maintenance. He only gets spider mites on the lemon. That's the thing. Here's another pro tip too. So whenever you are taking clones, I suggest that you do a full plant treatment and then you let them soak in something like Suff Oil X or 10% bleach or, surfactant and micronized sulfur, something. Just do something. And what that does is basically you want to, use some type of product to do surface sterilization when you're doing your clones. You can completely submerge everything and then make your cut after they have been submerged. Let them, wring them off a little bit, stick them and then root them. And then once they're rooted, submerge everything again. Maybe not necessarily the new roots, but submerge that whole plant again. I call it the double tap. So the first tap is before they're rooted. The second tap is after they're rooted. That ensures 2 complete plant dunks and surface sterilization, essentially, before they, get put into solo cups or pots for vegging. And then if you have issues or you've had issues, make sure you have integrated pest management maintenance. Like you could spray the Suff Oil X a couple times a week and then do something like Beauveria bassiana and Kiaha or Pyganic, Just make sure you have some type of maintenance protocol where you select a couple of days of the week to do your canopy maintenance and make sure that you're doing your, maybe bi-weekly, or it depends on your insect pressure. But if you have higher insect pressure, the frequency of application should have less time. So if you have high pressure, the frequency of whatever you're applying needs to be increased. Sometimes it's every day or every other day. And that the frequency of doing it needs to be the life cycle or the duration of whatever insect pest you're targeting. So if you're targeting, let's say like an aphid, it might have like a 16 to 21 day life cycle. You need to be hitting those things daily or every other day for a total of 21 days. And then you can do it maybe every 3 or 4 days and keep doing it. And then when you want to decrease the insect pressure and then still do your maintenance, because just because you're not seeing them doesn't necessarily mean something's not there. Japanese beetles. I don't have a whole lot of information on Japanese beetles. You know who would be really good to ask those types of questions is Matthew Gates. He is a self-taught entomologist, but he's brilliant in the field of integrated pest management and insects. So he knows all about those. But I think Beauveria bassiana also has an impact on a wide variety of beetles as well. And that might be one of them. Are they safe for cannabis? Is what safe for cannabis? Stink bugs. You know what? I actually do see stink bugs, rusty nails. I saw a little pair that was mating on one of my plants the other day. You know what I'm doing outdoors is I spray um, cold pressed Kiaha as a surfactant mixed with a little bit of Pyganic, and I just hit my plants with it, and I do that. I want to say probably about every 8 to 10 days, and it kind of just knocks everything back. Also, one of the things too is I got to go back into my yard where my plants are at, because underneath all that canopy is a bunch of grass and weeds and shit that are all growing up with the way below the weeds. So weed whacking that shit helps too. They're sucking on your tomatoes. I would try you know Kiaha or yucca as a surfactant mixed with, maybe you said on your tomatoes. You could try the horticulture oils. I mean, you obviously want to wash your fruit if you have fruit. But I think the Sulfur X will work. The Pyganic will work just fine. And Pyganic actually breaks down super, super fast in the sun. I haven't really had to deal with them. I see them here and there. I One of the worst things that I get for the garden is whenever I'm doing squash, is I get the squash beetles. They kind of look like ladybugs, but they're yellow and they're a little bit bigger, and they like go into the vines of like squashes and zucchinis and shit like that, and they fucking just ruin everything. What recommendations would I give when growing in the Arizona desert? What strains and inputs? Well, I'm always going to recommend the Bokashi Earthworks line, because that's a humate, carbon chelated humate fertilizers, organic amendments, microbes, things that work synergistically to build soil. That's going to help decrease biotic and abiotic stress. An abiotic stress factor would be things like drought or really dry conditions. As far as, but I've never lived in the area, so I don't have an experience, so I couldn't give you proper recommendations on exact like cultivars that you could grow in the Arizona desert. But I would think um, things that are a little more broadleaf, shorter, stockier type plants that someone might describe as indica. broadleaf dominant varieties. Is it safe for cannabis? Oh, hell no. No, dude. Hot shot? No, absolutely not. And you're not bothering. This is a great question because if you didn't know this, that if you just put this in the, like, I can barely pronounce this, dichlorophenyl dimethyl phosphate. No, that sounds terrible. I can guarantee you that would fail if you were trying to put that on the legal market. But no, that is definitely. Look, I actually don't know, but just given the name, there's probably a good chance it's highly toxic. But we could GPT it. Look at this. Look at this. Let's check GPT and see what it says. Dichlorophenyl dimethyl phosphate. Is it poisonous? What does it do to plants? Let's see. We'll see what GPT says. It's highly toxic and used as an insecticide, especially for fumigating stored products and controlled pests. They use it for fumigation, for fumigating homes. So, and it says that it is highly toxic to humans, animals, and insects. Functions by inhibiting acetylcholine, an essential enzyme for nervous system function. Causes nausea, vomiting, dizziness, convulsion, respiratory failure, and death. Fuck yeah, man. This shit is hella toxic. Let's see. Chronic exposure is linked to neurotoxicity and potential carcinogenity. Application can cause phytotoxic effects such as burn and stunted growth. And it can remain on residual crops. Yeah. So that's a no-go on that one, buddy. I'd never even heard of it. No hot shot, yeah. Yeah. No, that's crazy. There's a lot of different things. A good example was they used to have on the shelves in the hydro stores back in the day Eagle 20, which I believe is I don't know if it's a midichloropride. No, that was something different. There was a bunch of shit that just it's not even legal to use now. Because one of them, I think Eagle 20, when it burns, it turns into like cyanide or fucking something like that. I fucking can't remember. I remember I've done podcasts on it before, but I can't fucking remember. It was years ago when we talked about it. Let me know if you guys have. Drop those comments in the questions in the comments. Yeah, GPT is freaking awesome when it comes to fucking pulling up information. Who all in here is growing outdoor this season? just by drop like a fucking hashtag or something in the comments. I want to see how many people here are growing outdoors. We got 57 people in here. Oh yeah, look at that. Here they come in. So we got Mulch It Mike is growing outdoor. I want to know what you guys are growing this year. I want to do let's just call it some market research. Let's see. Edmund Otter is. We got David. Doing some sun grown. Outdoor in Ohio. There we go. Look at Vast Growly or Vast Grown Boys. Colby King. Papa Grows is just doing indoor. I'm doing indoor too, but I'm also doing outdoor. Mark's doing some outdoor. Oh, here we go. We got Innova is doing some CSI genetics. That's cool. I haven't personally grown anything from them. Oh, fucking perfect. That high divorce rate fucking is so fantastic. Outdoor, and that blueberry train mac will get huge. It's great too. We got Collie Man Co-op. Every year I do a breeding project outdoor, hitting my hunted male to all my current keepers. Yep, I'm doing outdoor selection work right now. If you go look at my IG story, showed a little story. Most of what I'm selecting right now is Blueberry Train Mac F3 crinkle cuts, but I also wanted to do a little bit of that Chem Dog cross the Blueberry Train Mac just to see what the expression is like on that, and I just kind of wanted to look through it a little bit. I actually probably won't do anything with it. It might get hit back to a crinkle cut F3 male, but I'm making seeds. I'm making seeds for sure. Five different types. Sweet. Indoor as well. Perpetually running outdoors. Florida summer rain gets me every year. Yep. Florida in the house. It looks like people from all over. Oh, nice. You're running the gas. So Mac 1. So yeah, so the Mac 1 Starfighter crossed to Mac V2. I took an F2 male of that line and crossed it back to Starfighter. So that's a fucking great one. You're gonna like that. They should finish pretty fast too. Oh, look at Deadhead's got some AK, some Black Label, some Orange Creamsicle, Cherry Cam, East Coast Sour D, some Peyote Tar Kush. I haven't seen AK in a long time. A lot of people growing that Blueberry Train Mac. Hell yeah. Everybody loves that one, man. Oh, actually, the Crinkle Cut won first place best sativa in the Mississippi Cannabis Cup. They were running indoor organic using, humates, microbes, all that stuff, soil testing. And they got second place best indica with Fisherman Seeds Sherb Cream Pie. You found a black light male yesterday. Man, look at that. I'm wearing a black light shirt. Look at that. That's so funny that you say that. I got I'm sporting the black light shirt, which is my Limerilla crossed to Mac V2, which is Limelight. So it's Gorilla Glue 4, Black Lime Reserve, Mac V2. And then I crossed that back to Black Lime Reserve. And it's a fucking great cross. John Scott's doing some outdoor. Let's see, we got a question from Al Telescope. I took in a clone and realized I had PM and it spread to the plants around. Do I take cuts and hope for the best or defoliate and spray wettable sulfur and start over? So the best course of action is to make sure. So usually powdery mildew spreads and sporulates in a certain environmental condition. So understand what those conditions are for that particular pathogen and where it grows best. And typically it's going to be in cooler temperatures with higher humidity. So if you're having problems, one of the things that you might try doing is trying to increase the temperature as well as your airflow, and maybe decrease your humidity if it's too humid. And then when it comes to actual treatment, so physical removal of infected leaves is best practice. But if you have a really bad infection, it might be best to take clones, do a surface sterilization, and do that double tap method that I talked about earlier, where you're doing something like 10% bleach solution and you're letting those things kind of bathe for 10 to 15 minutes in that solution. Just kind of let them sit in there. Then you clip your ends, dip it, put it in there. You'll at least get what's called surface sterilization. And you want to make sure that anything that you're cloning doesn't have any visual signs of powdery mildew. Do that surface sterilization, and then do it again once they're rooted, but don't dunk the roots. But it just depends, man. It depends if you want to try to treat it, and if you think that you can treat it by correcting your environmental parameters and doing some spray applications with Sulfoil X or something like wettable sulfur or something like trichoderma and bacillus. It just depends on your own personal preference on how you want to treat it. Raspberry deadhead. I haven't heard of those before. From Moongrown. Interesting. GGS1, Blueberry, Flow, Blue Dream. It looks like you got a lot of DJ Shark stuff in there, which I'm a big fan of his work. Not a big fan of his son's work, but his work has been good. Let's see. Plant Guardian says he's throwing out a UK cheese coffee outside. Oh, that'd be an interesting profile. Coffee and cheese. I'm not a big fan of the coffee, profiles on weed. I'm just not a big fan of coffee in general either. I don't drink coffee. And so to me, it's not really appealing. To me, coffee tastes terrible. And so when and I've drinking it, if I really need an energy boost, if I'm like going on a road trip or something like that, but that's really the only time. And for me, I don't really like it. So that one's probably not for me. But if you're a fan of coffee, I could see why it would be really exciting. But UK cheese, man, I haven't grown UK cheese, I think, since 2000. The last time I saw UK cheese was, I think, 2000 and I think it was 2012 the last time I saw it. And that was rare that I even came across it then, because before I hadn't even seen it. I think it's since like 2006 or 2005. Jake is also doing outdoor. RS11, Putang, Tangogurt, Cushman's, Permanent Marker, S1s. I actually crossed Permanent Marker to Black Lime Reserve. That's what I was smoking on earlier. I really like the fucking high on it. The flavor checks all boxes. I like it a lot. Collie Man's running the RS11 coffin candy. Hitting brunts, rainbow belts, white runs, papaya. Man, sounds like a lot of newer modern stuff, which is cool. Not my favorite. I like all the hazes and sours and the old Afghan type varieties personally, but there is definitely a huge market for a lot of those candy gases, especially out in Cali. They love it. Rusty Nail says he has 20 plants in flower and staggered flips, and the first come down last night, 110, all Bodie gear. Nice, dude. Bodie's a great breeder. I've never heard anything bad about his work, and all the stuff I've ever seen looked really good. The Limarilla is one of my favorites. So the Limarilla is a cross between Gorilla Glue 4 and Black Lime Reserve. And that was actually an accident. And so what happened was I had a friend and he's like, hey, this old man, he's trying to grow weed, and he had somebody helping him out, and the dude bailed on him. And I know that you've been in this for a long time. This was in 2014 or 2000, like right in the beginning of 2015, maybe. It was right around that time. And I went in and I was like, yeah, sure, I'll help him out. And I went over to his house and looked at his home grow setup that they had built, and it was just in shambles, and everything was like flowering already. And he had herms. The Gorilla Glue was herming because everything was so stressed out. It was super hot. He had like this DWC system or something like that they had put together all willy-nilly. And so I was like, look, this is what to my best experience, what you can do in given this situation. And so it's like, look, you're going to get seeded weed because all this stuff is herming out. So you can either let it finish out and I'll help you just at least get this stuff to the finish line so you have something to smoke, or you can just cut everything down, start over, and I'll show you what you need to do to reset everything and get it and get the right stuff in here. And he was an old man, so he's like, dude, I've smoked fucking seeded weed my whole life. He didn't care. He smoked a lot of Mexican brickweed and this and that. So it's like, let's just finish it out. So I was like, all right. So what we're going to do is we're going to change out this. We're going to get the AC turned on and get these fans turned on and mix these nutrients and do this timer. And he still ended up with, decent weed, better than what it was way better than the Mexican, bag weed, even better than the Pretendies that he sometimes got. So he was happy with it. And, I ended up I knew and it was already growing Gorilla Glue at the time. And it was just, it hit the scene like so hard. And so I was like, dude, I'm going to fucking grab a bunch of these seeds. And so I started popping all of these seeds and I started running through them and I started doing selection work, and and I've been working that Limarilla ever since. So it's kind of a cool story. It was a happy accident. I helped the old man, with the last probably, 6.5 weeks, and helped him cure everything and dry it. And, he just gave me some weed. I took it and I was like, well, I'm not going to smoke this, but those seeds basically are what, I've been working with forever now. I wish I still had some of the original ones. Let's see. Colby King on the Liberation OG Skunk 1. Hell yeah. Just got a mini split. Oh, huh. There, shout out Kendra. Good day, every day. Happy 4th, everybody. Yeah, I like tea, but I don't drink a lot of it. Caffeine really fucking amps me up, and it makes it hard for me to sleep. Some black triangle in flower. Mark Nelson's got the Blueberry Train Mac Crinkle Cut, Blueberry Skunk Cut, and Blueberry Train Mac MK Ultras. All the stuff that I sent to you. Green Bodie's awesome. Green Bodie's a friend of mine, and he's really just a family guy. He just wants, he just tries to really enjoy life, hang out with his family, do the things that he loves and that he's passionate about. LA Confidential. That's one that I haven't heard for a while. I think LA Confidential was like I want to say that was like the 2008-ish when I first saw that, maybe 2007. I mean, Mulchet Mike says he's addicted to extending microbes using targeted unique honeys, thinking it comes with its own fungal inoculation. Think there could be any truth to my bro science, seeing nice early results. That's really interesting because I always assumed that honey probably, had antimicrobial compounds, and that's one of the reasons why it's stored so long. But I've never really used it for, well, I guess I've used it in fermentations when I've done, fermented peppers with like garlic and herbs for like cough suppressant. When I'm like making a natural cough suppressant, I've used honey, but I've never done it for like a microbial. That's a really interesting idea though. But I've never really thought about it. I guess the only way that you could test is you would, I mean, take your honey and you can have it genomically sequenced for microorganisms and see what those microorganisms are that are associated with it. And then see if any of those microorganisms are also proliferating when you're expanding your microbes, see which ones they are that are actually growing and proliferating. Kind of cool idea though. You should think about maybe hitting up Medicinal Genomics. They can do that type of testing for you. We also have the Bokashi Seed Volt website, which has very limited selection. A lot of the stuff sold out, but there's still some cool stuff on there. Yeah, that's what I was also thinking, that it was antifungal. Valley Grow Boy said, growing across of your Limelight cross to GG4 BX times creams from Exotic Genetics. Huh, interesting. Very cool. I didn't do a Limelight times. I think you're thinking about Limarilla times Lime 1 BX. Or maybe you're thinking about Lime 1 BX cross to the GG4 cross to Lime 1 BX. Because that's probably what it is. It's probably Lime 1. It's probably the Gorilla Glue 4 cross to, no, it's the Gorilla Glue 4 B back cross to Lime 1 BX. Sweet is good. Anyway, I'm gonna get out of here. About time for me to get going. So I'll see y'all later. Talk to y'all soon.